All right, how is everyone doing today? And welcome to my channel. This channel is for educational purposes. We check into great theories, concepts, and discoveries that you might not know too much about. Theories of everything, grand unified theories, all-encompassing theories, magnum opuses, tour de forces, and earth-shattering discoveries, mostly emanating from obscure sources, and these are things that have been suppressed. And things that'll probably challenge you because they might challenge your belief systems or challenge your mental capacity. But they will be worth it because they will help you with your evolving spiritual, mental, and physical health quests. And this is a segment that we have called the Q-tip of the spear, where we go over some of the podcasts that I had the chance to listen to today and just muse about them. Primarily tip of the spear type of things, according to me, the cutting edge of the info war. And unfortunately, I don't quite consider this cutting edge, but I caught a little bit, I got rated over to a different show. And um, I heard some things that I just have to address. Um, I listened to a few different commentators talking about um, how Jesus was the disruptor. That's a big misunderstanding. Um, it has to be really parsed and um, kind of seen in a bigger context. Um, Jesus was quintessentially the most docile. Um, he is only disruptive when it comes to the Jews. When it comes to the Romans, he is utterly docile, does not do anything. He renders unto Caesar what is Caesar, and he walks the extra mile with the Roman soldiers' pack. All of the disruptiveness is targeted toward the Jews, the Pharisees, um, you know, criticizing them for being hypocrites, for keeping their rituals and overturning the tables of the money changers and the Jewish money changers, and having a fit against the Jewish merchants selling animals for the sacrifice at the temple. So Jesus is striking out against the Jewish rituals and traditions. Um, you know, questioning the kosher food laws, the Sabbath observance, circumcision, and other Jewish traditions and rituals, but never approaching any type of questioning of anything Roman. So that should give you a hint um, that perhaps Jesus isn't quite as disruptive as you might think. Um, and it also might give you a little bit of a clue as to the source of these stories. Um, especially when you consider that the Romans were masters of propaganda, psychological operations, codes, secret messages, and enigmas, wordplay, puns, uh, and that they had massive resources. Um, the only people in the Roman Empire with access to censorship, distribution and publishing. So now another comment that was made in that same conversation was that when you when you go all the way down the rabbit, said by a person who has apparently been red pilled for 25 years. Um, when you go down the rabbit hole, you always end up with Jesus, something to that effect. Um, yeah, agree completely. You always end up finding out that Jesus and the story of Jesus in the Gospels and the rest of the New Testament was a psychological operation that was done by the Romans. So it doesn't matter, you know, uh, really all of the other psychological operations will come to naught if you can't figure that one out. If you can't figure out the Jesus psyop, the rest of the stuff will not ultimately work. You do have to go back further into the Old Testament as well and recognize that the Old Testament is a history book. It is not a religious book. There is no religion in the Old Testament except for the first chapter of Genesis. After that, God is replaced by a character named Yahweh Elohim, who is not God, not close. He's powerful, he's intelligent, he's got high technology, but he is a very, very flawed individual, more flawed than 98% of the humans. And he lays down some covenants, he lays down some laws, and the humans are to obey those laws, uh, not because they're right or because they're wrong, not because they're good and not because they're evil. No, but because Yahweh Elohim says so. That's the whole Old Testament. So we're going to need to grow up to these very simple and obvious. Um, the word Elohim is translated as God, but that's not what it means. First of all, it's in the plural. It is a group of dudes that are highly advanced for whatever reason. And they include Yahweh and they include all of Yahweh's competitors, such as Baal and Shamash and Ashtoreth and Moloch. These are all Elohim, translated as gods or deities, but really as some powerful dudes. And that's the Old Testament. And the New Testament is a complete psychological operation that was written by the Romans. And it kind of makes me sick to my stomach when I hear people that tell me that they've been awake for 25 years and they haven't managed to figure this out yet. Um, and this entire movement has been around for 10 years, and I never, ever, ever hear people talking about this. Now, I do hear people, questioning things and talking about religion and saying something that I think is close to getting on the right track, where you say, oh, all the religions have a deep state or, a bad side to them. Um, but the people of all faiths are good people. I would say that it's really the opposite. I'd say that all the religions are bad. The Quran was written by the Romans, their distant relatives. The New Testament was written by the Romans, and um, the Old Testament was plagiarized from the Sumerians and doesn't have anything to do with God. And um, let's just toss those away. What we need to start with is we need a platform such as was proposed by many of the patriots who founded this country. They wanted to find this country on the ground of deism. Deism is the belief in one God who is good, who has endowed the humans with higher mental faculties such as reason, wonder, curiosity, inspiration, creativity, aesthetics, and has given us these abilities to connect with God through nature, through the laws of math and physics and geometry, and to understand God directly thereby, not indirectly through uh, books in written language and through priests and pastors and rabbis, but directly. This is our evolutionary, whatever you want to call it, developmental, if you don't like the word evolutionary. But this is the next step for us to have everybody has to be responsible for their own religion. It's not something that you know get from somebody else. And I've covered that on my channel ad nauseum. So you might want to check out some of the back log on my channel in the both the reciprocal church category, um, but also in the reciprocal system, especially the last Larson's last book called Beyond Space and Time, and also in my Tree of Life videos. So, so if you're interested, you've got a lot of homework. And thanks for tuning in today. Like, share, subscribe, and comment, contribute, and come back next time for another Bible Decode. Thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day.